one of the reasons why I do think Wirtz could play left wing is because of Milos Kerkez. And I wanted then to move on to him because his signing has sort of taken a backseat in the media in terms of fans discussing him as well, because that's understandable because Wirtz is £100 million plus signing, and that's naturally going to get the attention that you think it would get. But do you think that we're at all close to getting news of a breakthrough for a fee or the announcement of an agreement with Bournemouth?
The last I kind of asked about this and spoke to people was on kind of Friday, and no official offer had been lodged then. So, with as far as I know, nothing's kind of changed right now. But I mean, we're not a million miles away. I think Liverpool are kind of trying to get themselves in a position where they've got an outline idea of what Bournemouth want, and then they're going to kind of try and work their way towards that in a similar way with Wirtz. So, I think people got a little bit carried away last week in terms of how advanced that was. I think, on the player side of things, absolutely no problem with personal terms. He's very, very keen to come, which I think everybody knows about. So that won't be an issue at all. But it's just on that club side, and it wasn't quite as advanced as I think some places maybe had it. But that can move quickly. So I think they'll want to get this Wirtz one over the line as soon as possible, and then, kind of full focus on getting Kerkez done. But, as I said earlier, there's no kind of time pressure there with this first window or whatever. So, it can happen in a week, it can happen in 2 weeks. It's absolutely fine, really. So, but yeah, that one is one that is it's moving towards a resolution. But I think things have got to kind of step up a little bit on the club side.
On the topic of left backs, so Liverpool expected, or that's certainly the expectation, that Liverpool will sign Kerkez at some point, whenever that may be. But Manchester City have also signed a left back in Ait-Nouri, and I know that we discussed this before, and I know that you've said that you quite like him. I personally think Ait-Nouri might be slightly better on the ball, but I think Kerkez is definitely the better athlete. So I wanted to ask you about whether you think Kerkez elevates Liverpool more than Ait-Nouri might elevate Man City.
Do you know what? It's an interesting one. It's talking about kind of Cherky and Wirtz and shopping in the same market. This is, again, very similar situation whereby, they both had a look at these two left backs. Liverpool very much have liked Ait-Nouri for a while as well. So, but what I think we've kind of seen is almost the two. It's not necessarily someone ended up with the first choice and someone ended up with second in this case. I think this is more, I think each one has ended up with the player who's possibly more of a fit for them. I think what Liverpool need is the physicality and the Kerkez brings, the engine up and down. And I think City, for them, the better fit is to have, I think Ait-Nouri, as you say, is better on the ball, a bit more of a technician, a bit more of a kind of Pep Guardiola type, really. So both clubs have kind of ended up really with, the two left backs that they were looking at with the one that fits them best, I think, in this, and that's the way this deal's worked out. So, I think Ait-Nouri will do very well at City. I think he's a fantastic player. He's still only 23, which is mad because he's been around forever. I think he always has a good game up against Salah, generally speaking. Or as good a game as you can have against Mo. He probably does generally score against him as well, but that, he does that to everyone. So I think he's defensively very good. I think technically brilliant. So I think he's going to add a lot to them. But I also think Kerkez is a very good fit for what Liverpool need. I think he is improving in terms of his output. I did a little bit of research on him actually in terms of, and he kind of surprised me. I think he had 6 assists and 2 goals he ended up with this season. So he's really coming on in that regard. He's got boundless energy, and he played 38 Premier League games last season as well, which is important. So loads to like about him as well, and he will give them that pace up and down that side that they've maybe been missing this season. So I think everyone kind of will win from these two deals, to be honest. And what is pleasing, particularly for me as well, is the calls, and we've spoken about this before, going on about having centre halves at fullback for so long, and I was so sick of that, and I did not like that, and I didn't want Liverpool to go down that route either. And I like that Pep Guardiola is moving away from it as well, because I think football is better when you don't just have 4 big lads at the back and everyone can play a bit, and the way that they'll play football will be easier to watch, I think, for City now. And yeah, I'm glad Liverpool didn't go down that route, because it was a bit of a passing fad that the clubs are moving away from now. So very glad to see that.
So what you basically just said there is Mikel Arteta, take notes.
Yeah. Well, genuinely though, I wonder if you will, because they need to evolve, they need to get better. one of the areas they can be limited in is the fact that their fullbacks are not as good on the ball as maybe Liverpool's have been. And, you know, City, they kind of covered for that a lot of the time by having insane technicians in basically every other position. So it was absolutely fine. But the way that you could slow them down a little bit was to just make sure their fullbacks got the ball in advanced areas a lot of the time. So I remember their game against Arsenal, where that was Arsenal's whole idea very early in the season. It was to funnel the ball out to City's fullbacks and just get as deep as possible. And, you know, if you were doing that and you directed the ball towards them, City was struggling because you'd have Ake at left back he's a very, very good footballer, but he's not going to unpick you. He's not Kevin De Bruyne. So that was a good technique for kind of stopping City. And similarly, Arsenal had that done to them an awful lot last season. So there were real weaknesses in that as much as it was helpful to them in terms of defending. So, yeah, you know, it's one for Arsenal to think about actually in terms of as they move forward, because City are moving away from that. Liverpool never went down that route. So, you know, is it going to end up being a weakness for Arsenal again?